welcome. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for another webinar. And we will be talking about asthma today, breathing exercises for asthma, which is actually at the root of the Airofit development, because the original device was actually developed for asthma and COPD, for patients with asthma and COPD. And respiratory training has been used for decades for these patients. So let's start with that, right? First of all, I'm not sure if everybody knows the difference between asthma and exercise-induced asthma. Does anybody in here suffer from any of both? Do you know the difference? You can reply in comments, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big difference, yes.
There is a difference. Okay.
Yes.
Some of you may have asthma and some others may have exercise-induced asthma. So let's talk about the difference between both of them.
Yeah, okay.
Tom, do you want to start?
Maybe I can kick off a little bit about that, but it's like I'm not the renowned specialist, but I realized that like when you have asthma, it can be even hereditary, like you inherited it from your parents, but it can be a reaction to any environment like pollution. It can be allergic reactions. It can even be your immune response, like causing inflammation, causing your airways to thicken so you get less air through and more mucus. And this will cause coughing and the wheezing and the breathlessness. And most people don't immediately realize, but often there is dysfunctional breathing involved. And that's why, like, for example, people who start swimming, if you're a regular swimmer, then you can have less trouble with your asthma, because of the swimming will force you to breathe in a certain pattern, and the pressure of the water on your chest and your abdomen and your mouth and your face in the water will cause you to breathe less, and breathing less will reduce the ventilation, the amount of ventilation, and that will create some benefits. So like that's like just asthma. And if you have like exercise-induced asthma, it's more caused by the high times of high ventilation rates, so more breathing and more volume in breathing. And most common, this happens when people are doing endurance sports, like for example cycling. I think it's most common because of the high amount of training hours that you're highly ventilating, and because you're often not in optimal air, because a lot of people are cycling also in traffic and in polluted air, and so it's double on. But most of the time, the exercise-induced is like when you're doing high ventilation during many training hours, causing your airways to narrow and getting the exercise-induced asthma. That's my view on it. So if you have any I would say fill it in.
No,
please do.
That is a perfect explanation. And also, what is curious is that exercise-induced asthma is basically asthma triggered by exercise, but solely by exercise. It's not like these people who suffer from exercise-induced asthma, as some of you may know, only suffer from these attacks when they work out, not under other conditions, which is very peculiar.
No, there is no link with any allergic reaction or
no, and that is very peculiar. What's also funny, or well, also to us interesting, at least in a way, is that for both conditions, the treatment does include respiratory training. Like breathing exercises are recommended within several national guidelines, the NHS, and even the World Health Organization. Many international organisms actually include breathing techniques in asthma treatment. And you may wonder why. So why are breathing exercises included in asthma and COPD treatment? Because it seems something that's very simple, and it's also non-pharmacological. So some people may say, this doesn't have a lot of evidence behind it, but it actually does. So Tom, can you tell us a little bit more? Why do you think breathing exercises are included in asthma management?
Yeah, of course, because like the coughing and the wheezing and the breathlessness, are caused by nasal constriction and bronchoconstriction. So your airway is narrow, and with breathing exercises, you can reduce this effect. Like if you do, like for instance, like the nasal breathing, if you focus on nasal breathing, you get more nitric oxide. It will relax your soft tissue, so open them more. It has like a dilating function for your airways, opening your airways, and the nitric oxide will create better blood flow, better blood distribution in your lungs, so you can have a better gas exchange. That's just nasal breathing. If you do like more diaphragmatic breathing, like breathing low, the slowest part of your lungs are the most efficient. So you can have, again, a better gas exchange and a better air intake because you're using the bottom 20-30% of your lungs, and those are the most efficient. They have the most alveoli for changing gas. The next one is like in breathing exercise, slow down your breathing, less minute ventilation. And I don't know if everybody will understand, like minute ventilation is like you can breathe like 6 times a minute or you can breathe 12 times a minute, but it's depending on how much air you take in each breath, depends how many liters of air you breathe, you replace in 1 minute. So the minute ventilation, if that's too high, then you're expelling too much carbon dioxide, and carbon dioxide is again a vasodilator, so it will help you keep open your veins, or also in your airways. So if you breathe less, you keep in more carbon dioxide, helping you to open your airways. And of course, respiratory muscle training, like training your diaphragm and other breathing muscles, will keep you in more powerful breathing. So you're using less effort and you're more efficient. So you have less trouble with the breathlessness, and it will help you like learn different breathing patterns. So you can fall back on that when you have an asthma attack or when you're trying to get better at your sports. If you start with the right way of breathing, then you have less chance of having exercise-induced asthma. So, of course, it has a lot of benefits.
Exactly. And also, every physiotherapist that has treated with lung diseases, with patients with lung diseases, will recommend diaphragmatic breathing for this type of patients, unquestionably. And well, there's a lot of science that backs this up, obviously,
Yes.
but you can also check many different testimonials from Airofiters, from other people that have been using Airofit, that have seen a massive improvement in their asthma management. You can go to Trustpilot, and we can seriously take a very, very big amount of users that have seen an improvement in their asthma symptoms from using it.
Yes.
And this is one of the reasons why, because basically by strengthening your diaphragm, you're also making it easier for your body to take that oxygen that you're receiving, because you're breathing deep with the base of your lungs. Am I correct,
Yes.
Tom?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And like you can breathe slow and breathe in your chest, but for your brain, there's a difference in the state you're in. So you're more in an active mode, in an alertness, triggering anxiety, and the anxiety will reinforce the breathlessness and the feeling suffocated. So
Exactly.
I think, yeah, absolutely. It's the diaphragm is the breathing muscle to go to, and with the Airofit, that's where you're working on. So it will absolutely benefit. Absolutely.
Exactly. Now, there are some breathing exercises that, regardless whether you have an Airofit or not, I'm not sure if do you have an Airofit, or are you interested in having an Airofit? Yes, you do. Okay. That's fantastic.
Okay.
But even if you don't have an Airofit, you can also practice these very simple exercises that will help you manage your symptoms in a daily basis, right, Tom? So can you show us maybe a few of these exercises that can help you on your everyday basis, basically?
Yeah. Like when you feel like an attack coming on, like your asthma is kicking in, the one thing, even I think the American Lung Association will recommend like pursed lip breathing. It's an easy exercise. where you do like a double exhale, a 1-2 breathing, I call it. It's much of the same, but what you do is like you inhale through your nose, like 2 or 3 seconds, depending on how short of breath you are at that moment. But you could do even like a 2-second in, and then you purse your lips as if you're whistling, like take in through your nose and then and try to double the exhale. Maybe we can do it together for a few times, like, and you can do like 2 seconds in, 3 seconds, 4 seconds out. Maybe we can try that, like just like that in. And just by slowing down the out breath, you take control, and you don't expel more than you breathe in, and your minute ventilation is low because you take in like 2 or 3 seconds of air, but you let it go in a relaxed way. And so this will relax your system, and it will help you calm down, and it will ease the breathlessness. So it's like an easy exercise. 2 or 3 seconds in, pretend that you're whistling, and just like this should you should be able to counteract the asthmatic attack if you're early. If you detect it like it's coming on, and you take control and you do this exercise, it will help you. The second exercise that you can do is like mini breath holds. When you feel like asthma coming on, like when you do breathing in and out, two breaths, and you hold for 5 seconds. And 5 might be too much for some people, but try 3 seconds. But don't go to 7 or 8 because you will feel more breathlessness. So and you feel more anxiety. So it's a thin line where you need to figure out how much seconds that you can keep it. But like just 2 breath holds, two breaths. And then you stop for 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you breathe again 2 times. 2 breaths. And you hold again for 5 seconds. If you do that 5 times, or maybe longer if you feel like the attack is not going away, that's for acute asthma kicking in.
Mm-hmm.
But also what most people don't know is like when your breathing pattern is like you're always over breathing, you're high ventilating. If you do this, like 5 breath holds 10 times a day for 10 days, then probably you will have half less asthmatic problems, because your system will change immediately and your receptors will detect that you can tolerate more carbon dioxide. Your breathing will slow down, you have less minute ventilation, so less risk of an asthmatic attack. So this is long term, and it works in like 2 weeks. You will have benefits within 2 weeks. This surplusing with your strengthening your breathing muscles. So this is bypassing dealing with carbon dioxide. So it's a very good exercise.
Tom,
maybe I should.
Can you show us again the exercise, and I will leave the stage so that it will only be you showing them this exercise of mini breath holds. Is that okay?
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Then we can do it together.
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly.
Yes. Okay. So everybody, it's very simple. You're probably over breathing, you're over ventilating, and like I said, minute ventilation. So slowing down your autopilot, your breathing, you can do that by recalibrating your carbon dioxide receptors. So let's do 5 mini breath holds with every time 2 normal breaths. So I do like this: in, out, and then I stop. Okay, so follow me. And then stop. And again. Breathe again. 2 breaths. And stop. And again. 2 breaths. And hold your breath. And again. One more. Stop. It's easy as that, and start normal breathing again. So if you do this like every hour, every 2 hours of every day for at least 6 days a week, and you do that for 2 weeks, then you will have a less sensitivity to carbon dioxide, and your normal breathing, your autopilot will slow down. We breathe like almost 20,000 times a day. So you don't have to think about it. It's not an exercise anymore if your autopilot is slowing down, and you will have benefits. Absolutely.
So it's like everything else. Like we recommend respiratory muscle training every single
Absolutely.
day. This is something that you have to do every single day, but especially when you're feeling like you're having an asthma attack. Am I correct?
If you're suffering from a normal asthma, then this is the way to go to deal with it, to have less symptoms in the long run. So it's an acute, like the pursed lip breathing. If you feel an asthma attack coming on, you can do the pursed lip breathing, or you can do the mini breath holds. But if you say, like, I wanna deal with my asthma, and you do the mini breath holds like 10 times, 12 times a day, every hour, every 2 hours. And you do that for 10 days executive or 14 days executive, and then you will feel that you will have less symptoms because your autopilot is changing, and then it's all getting better. If you combine that with using the Airofit, training your respiratory muscles, then I challenge you to do it. Combine these two, and within 2 weeks, 3 weeks, you will have less symptoms. If not, please send me an email.
Please send us an
Then we'll
email.
look
If
further.
not,
Then we'll look further on what's going on. But it will work, absolutely.
if this doesn't
Absolutely.
work, please send us an email at support@airofit.com, and I will try and do my best to give you the assistance that you need.
Send them to me. Send them to me.
Yes.
I will check out what's going on.
Or please to Tom. But now you talked about Airofit exercises, right?
Yeah.
And many people ask what exercises in particular are useful for managing asthma. So maybe we can talk a little bit more about that.
Like,
Which ones, or with which breathing sessions or which breathing programs within Airofit would we recommend?
I think in every program, there are exercises focusing on your inhale strength. And I
Yes.
think focusing on your inhale strength, that has the most impact on your diaphragm. And combining with breath holds and all kinds of that's all about carbon sensitivity. But any inhale strength exercise will help you strengthen your diaphragm. And I think that has the most impact on your asthmatic symptoms.
Exactly. So the most scientifically researched as well program that we have, especially for asthma and COPD management, is inhale strength. So for those of you who already have an Airofit and that have especially our premium membership, there you'll be able to explore these sessions a little bit more. Now we do have a question that came up. When you are breathing in so fast, does this not trigger some bronchospasm?
Yeah, when I did like the 2 breaths, it's just something I choose at this moment. Do it at your own pace. I call do 2 normal breaths. What is your normal pace of breathing? So you don't, how do you say? The explanation is you don't need to do anything special. Just take 2 breaths and take them like they are fitting you. Like if this are your normal breaths. That's perfect, and then stop for 5 seconds. But it's okay. It's okay.
Oh, Zoe, you mean the hyperventilation sessions? When maybe she means something with the hyperventilation sessions in Airofit?
Okay, yeah.
Because in Airofit, we do have a few sessions that include hyperventilation, But more than for asthma management, we recommend those sessions as a warm-up for your training. When you're trying to warm up very quickly, either for an endurance training sport or for going to the gym, or just to get your respiratory system adapted quickly, we do recommend this hyperventilation. Now, what we are talking about, that Tom may have some more experience, is hyperventilation related to the Wim Hof method. And that method has also been proven to improve asthma symptoms. But I would say that for including that method to your everyday life, I would guide you more towards Tom. I believe that you are the expert here.
Yeah, well, I think it's almost similar. Like when you do Wim Hof breathing, you do 30 fast breaths and relatively fast breaths, but then you also do a long breath hold. So you're also training to deal with higher carbon dioxide. And it's the same effect as doing the mini breath holds during the day. I think for asthma, I think you're better off doing the mini breath holds than doing the Wim Hof breathing once a day, because it doesn't, I mean, the first 4 years that I was doing Wim Hof method, I didn't gain like 3 minutes in my breath hold time. So my carbon sensitivity hasn't really changed. But with the mini breath holds, doing them many times a day for 10 or 15 days in a row, then you will have an impact on the calibration of your receptors, and then it will work better. Within the device, anything that has to do with inhale strength will help you.
Does this work with COPD? Yes, actually, the most scientifically researched, like the biggest amount of research that we have on respiratory muscle training is at its core on COPD and asthma management. Then they later found out that respiratory muscle training was also very good for sports performance, for sleep and recovery. But at its core, the device itself and the respiratory muscle training techniques, they were born for COPD and asthma patients. So yes, it does work for COPD. Will I see an improvement in my peak flow? The idea is yes, although we don't measure your peak flow in the Airofit app. We measure your accessible vital lung capacity, your maximum inspiratory pressure, and your maximum expiratory pressure. But we don't measure your peak flow. However, if you have a way of tracking that, we believe that the trend will be, that it will improve. COVID damage. Yeah.
That's a very interesting one, yes.
That's a very interesting one. What can we tell Mark about COVID damage, COVID management?
Yeah, anything that has to do with like long COVID problems, anybody will benefit from strengthening your muscles because you will breathe easier. And with doing the exercises, you will breathe less and slower and in a more flowing way. So you will be more gentle on your lungs, and doing the nasal breathing, getting more blood in the best part of your lungs, it will have benefits, of course. Yes.
That is true. And also the World Health Organization recently released guidelines that included breathing exercises and respiratory training in COVID recovery. Actually, I remember that I just read an article from January 2022 that that proved how respiratory muscle training actually was very beneficial for COVID recovery. I can also give you a link. If you write me an email at support@aerofit.com, I will give you a link to all these studies. It will be my pleasure to do so. Yeah. I suffer from bronchiectasis, which is apparently irreversible. It is, unfortunately. How can I find help from the Airofit device? We don't have evidence of respiratory muscle training for your particular condition. And for specific conditions like this, we do recommend you to go to your practitioner. However, My guess would be that by improving oxygen availability, which has been proven with respiratory muscle training, you could potentially improve the airflow to your lungs. However, we don't have evidence for your particular case, and I advise you to consult with your physician. What do you
Yes.
believe, Tom, for those particular cases?
Yeah, well, I'm not a medical doctor, so I can't go deeper in that specific, how do you say?
Area.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, and yeah, it's all about mucus and getting rid of the mucus. I believe if you have like bronchitis, I don't even know how to pronounce
Yes,
it in
yes.
English, but yeah, it has a lot to do with like dealing with your mucus, and there are a lot of exercises to getting better in getting rid of the mucus, but also I believe if you're strengthening and you do nasal breathing, you have more oxygen and you have more oxygen available and your airways will open. So I think, but it's my guess, and I follow your advice to consult your medical doctor
Yeah.
and talk to him about the possibilities of the Airofit and if it would be beneficial,
Yes.
and then decide whether you will try it or not. I won't go there and doing medical advice.
No, no. We are working with physiotherapists, and we are expecting a few studies to be released later on, perhaps next year. But for now, we advise you to go to your physician and to consult with them about your particular case. Yes. Airofit will help with muscle strength and lung volumes. Exactly, Zoe. Which in part will help move more of your mucus. That is true. Respiratory muscle training
Yeah.
can help you clear your lungs in general. With respiratory lung infections, with lung diseases in general. So yeah, that is a fact. That is one of the facts that we can give you.
Yeah.
Rob, you have another question. I'm a runner. I developed exercise-induced asthma after interval training during cold weather, very common, 4 years ago. It feels like I've lost at least 10% airflow into my lungs, common, and in turn speed. Is there a specific Airofit program that could improve this? Well, we do have every single session that is included under Inhale Strength. However, we also recommend you to follow the program for runners. You can go to goals, select your area, your focus area, and then you select sports, and then you select running. And running will automatically select some sessions from Inhale Strength that will likely help you overall. I think
Yes.
that it's a good idea for you to follow the running program. It's very complete.
Yes, and nose breathing and slow breathing while exercising, and you will lose speed and you will lose um, like the feeling that you can run fast and long. It will take you 3 months to reprogram your body to nose breathing while running, but then you will have the benefits. So combine that with the Airofit, and those 10% will get back to you and more.
Yes, exactly. Marco, what is the Airofit best focus area for asthma? The inhale strength. Inhale strength and everything related to inhale and inspiratory foundation, I would say those are the ones that we do recommend for patients with asthma and with obstructive pulmonary diseases. Yeah, overall.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, Tom, there's something that I wasn't able to ask you before, but we know that diaphragmatic breathing is super important for asthma management in general. So can you give us a few tips on how to focus more on your diaphragm? Because it's not that easy. It's not belly breathing for sure.
It's not automatically like when you use your belly to breathe, you are using your diaphragm. But for many people, you can start like some people are so into chest breathing that they don't even remember how to breathe with their diaphragm. And like when you do belly breathing, you can do it in many ways. I can breathe low in my belly, I can breathe here, I can breathe sideways, but I'm always using my diaphragm. And when you start doing that, when you're trying just try to breathe, and this hand should not move. So you focus on breathing below here. You can't really see it like when I do this. This is really belly breathing,
That is belly breathing.
But this hand doesn't move. This hand doesn't move. And start there. Inhaling is making room down here.
Yeah.
So you should expand when you're inhaling, and you should retract when you're exhaling without moving your chest. And if that's hard for you, you can either push your chest or you can use an elastic band. I did it like, the cheapest way is like an old bicycle inner tube. Just put it around you, breathe out, stretch it, and then you will have a resistance on your chest. And then when you breathe, you must breathe in your belly because you're having like a contraction here. It will help you find your way back to your diaphragmatic breathing. So I think it's a good exercise to try and do that. You can also lie down and take the biggest book that you can find in your home and put it on your belly and try to move the book up and down while you're breathing lying down. So there are many ways. Just try to focus, and that's training. It doesn't come back automatically.
No.
You have to focus on that, but you can strengthen in that way just using, because if you use the Airofit wrong, if you're really a chest breather, then you can use the Airofit and do any exercise while still breathing in your chest.
Exactly.
It does stimulate you to try and breathe in your diaphragm, but it doesn't automatically happen, especially if you're breathing in your chest for the past 15 years, then you will try to breathe here, even with the Airofit. So combine it with other exercises like feeling where you're breathing, using the elastic band, using a book, whatever. Just try to move from your solar plexus down.
So that is something very important, and that is that while you're using this, you should always focus on diaphragmatic breathing. It's not going to come automatically, but it is very important, especially for asthma patients. Now, Mark has another question. Did a nose breathing mean that you are breathing warm, moist air? Yes, and that is the idea, that through your nose, sometimes definitely with cold air, if you open your mouth to breathe, you should only open your mouth to train your breathing with Airofit. Ideally, the rest of the time, you should be breathing through your nose, specifically because your nose covers all these functions of warming up the air, of filtering the air particles. So yes, you should try and nose breathe most of the time, especially because it has that function of warming up.
Yeah, your nose has the ability to regulate the temperature and the moisture, and like when you breathe through your mouth, it's straight into your lungs. Yeah. And your nose has it will create a vortex, and in that vortex, it will regulate anything from humidity and temperature. And so the air is better getting into your lungs if you breathe through your nose. Absolutely.
This is a very interesting question from Bruce. I have COPD and go to physical training twice a week. I find that I mouth breathe when I exercise. How do I train myself to nose breathe? How do we train ourselves to nose breathe, Tom?
Focus on keeping your mouth shut and slowing down. If you can't keep up with breathing through your nose in your exercise, slow down your exercise. Mm-hmm. Slow down the intensity, slow down the speed, slow down whatever you have to do to keep breathing through your nose. If that's too hard, tape your mouth shut. Use a piece of tape and close your mouth, really close your mouth. And then you will feel like if you're like a runner and you run like, I don't know, 8 miles an hour, and then you start training with your nose, you can't keep up your 8 miles an hour. You have to slow down and give it some time, give it some weeks, give it some months. It might take you 3 months to get back at the same speed while nose breathing, but you will feel less fatigue and you will have more energy and can run for longer. So with COPD, if you're having lung problems and you do physical training, focus on closing your mouth. You have to breathe through your nose and slow down the exercise intensity to keep breathing through your nose.
Yeah.
And really, you can really close your mouth like tape, shut it with a tape, and then you have to breathe through your nose.
Yeah, exactly. You can do that, and also combine that with training for even just 5 minutes every day with Airofit, or with a device that provides resistance to your breathing, like Airofit. Because by doing so, you will notice that eventually exercise will become easier, and then you won't need to turn to mouth breathing, gasping for air, but you will just focus on nose breathing. I used to do the same thing, and I don't even have asthma nor COPD, and I used to do the same thing when I was running. But then if you try and slow down and try and be more conscious of nose breathing, it really, really improves your performance. So
and it will be hard. It will be hard in the beginning because you have a lot more, like how you say, you have to blow your nose a little more, and lots of things will happen because you're using that in an intensive way that you haven't been used to. But your body will adapt. There is no issue to it. So.
Yeah, it's like slowing down for then getting faster. Slow down a little bit on your exercise, try and nose breathe, and then eventually you can go faster and nose breathe and then improve your performance, which is ideal.
And there are many, like in the beginning, I said, like you have to keep the carbon dioxide in, and there's a whole theory behind it. I can talk a lot just about that for an hour. We don't have that time, but just believe me or look it up. You need the carbon dioxide to be efficient in delivering oxygen to your muscles.
Exactly.
So if you're overbreathing, you're losing the capacity of efficiently delivering oxygen to your muscles. So you need to slow down your breathing, keep in the carbon dioxide, and use your nose because of the nitric oxide. Many factors that I can tell you why it is necessary. Just try it, give it some time, and you will feel the benefits.
Yes, and we have a couple more questions.
There you go, in the morning.
We have a couple more questions. This is interesting. My asthma symptoms and peak flow is usually worse in the morning. With this in mind, is there a good time to do my Airofit exercises? So this is a great question.
Yeah, and it's funny because I was just explaining that during nighttime you're extra over, you're breathing even faster when you're asleep, so you wake up with more problems. It's logic. It's logic.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that that is the best time to do your exercise, but you can do extra exercises before going to bed.
Yes.
To slow down your system.
Yes, and we usually recommend you to train at least twice a day. You can do it once, like if it's definitely that you only have 5 minutes a day, then just do the 5 minutes before going to bed. But if possible, please train twice a day. One in the morning, and then you complete another session in the afternoon or evening, as Tom says, before going to bed.
Yeah.
Yes.
And especially to John, like try the mini breath holds. Do them 10 times a day, do them 15 days long, and you will feel better in the morning.
Yeah. Now, Rob, you have another question. By nose breathing when exercising, do you mean in through the nose and out through the mouth, or purely through the nose? Ideally through the nose, but I believe that, Tom, you mentioned once that what really, really counts is the inhale through the nose. Then the exhale, I mean, you can do it through the mouth at the beginning while you adapt. Ideally, everything would be through the nose, but I think that the important part is inhale, right, Tom?
Yes, because you will harvest the nitric oxide by inhaling. You create the nitric oxide when you inhale. So, and it's better to do the in and exhale through the nose. And if you tape your mouth, you don't have a choice. You will have to breathe in and out through your nose.
Yeah.
But the inhale through the nose is the most important. The exhale might be through the mouth. I don't think that's a problem.
Exactly. Is there a best position to train? With Airofit, we do recommend you to train in a sitting position and in a very relaxed position, not standing, not while doing other type of physical activity, not while walking, just relaxed. In a relaxed position, sitting, that would be the ideal position for us. Yeah.
Yes.
I try to use my Airofit device every day. It is disheartening to see results such as your lung capacity has decreased. What can you, yes, I do agree. It can be a little bit it's not very motivating when you see that your lung capacity has decreased. It has happened to me too. However, take into account that there are many factors that play a role in the lung test, right? It's not only whether your lung capacity has actually increased or not, but it also takes into account the time of the day when you're taking the lung test. Even if you're taking the lung test in an empty stomach or not, the device is very, very sensible. So take that into account when you're taking the test, and don't get discouraged.
I think it's the same with breath holding, whether you're doing Wim Hof method, whatever you're doing. One day isn't the same as the other. It has to do with stress. How well did you sleep? How full is your stomach? Or there are so many factors that have an impact on that. So don't get discouraged. Don't take it as a hard truth. Look at the timeline and look at this like, how do you say, a reference over time. But don't get discouraged if there are two consecutive days that it looks like you're doing worse. And it's the same, like I say with breath holds. One day I can make 3.5 minutes. Another day I can only do 2. And it's just what's happening. How well did you? There's so many factors. So take that into account. And great comment from John. The breath from James Nestor, the book. It's absolute must read. Absolutely,
it's a piece of art. So we do recommend it as well, John. Thank you so much for recommending it to others. We do recommend it as well. Thank you so much to everyone who attended. Thank you. For more information, also you can write us an email at support@aerofit.com. And have a great evening, everybody. Thank you so much, Tom, for being with us once more.
You're welcome. It was always nice to do these webinars with you, and love the audience, and wish you all very good luck, and try the exercises, and you will benefit from them. I guarantee. Buy yourself an Airofit if you don't have one. If you're not satisfied, send it back. You will get refunded. There is no limit.
45 days.
You must try it. You must try it.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great evening, everybody.